Thank you so much for joining us today. Before we dive in, let's talk through a few Zoom housekeeping items. You're all muted, so you don't have to worry about barking dogs or background noise. This is really meant to be an interactive session, meaning we want to address all of your questions. We've budgeted 45 minutes, but we can hang on for the full hour as needed. If you have a question, please use the Q&A button, not the chat feature. We've actually disabled the chat function. This function is what we'll use to monitor questions throughout the entire webinar. If you don't know where it is, it's on the right bottom corner next to polls, and you'll see it on your Zoom screen. All right. With that, I'll start by introducing myself. I'll be your moderator today. My name is Holly Richards, and I'm the Director of Product and Vertical Marketing here at Zayo. I'm thrilled to be here today and super excited to dive into a series of pretty spectacular announcements through 2023, including significant growth in our capacity of 400G, expansion of our network footprint, both nationally and globally, and a lot of investments we've made to make it easier for our customers to turn up their services. We're also going to dig into what's in store for our future as we continue to grow our network and talk about capacity and future investments in our automation. So first, I'm going to do a quick introduction so everyone here knows who is on your screen. Joining me today is Bill and Derek, two colleagues of mine. First, I'd like to introduce Derek. He's the Chief Sales Officer here at Zayo. He's been a leader at Zayo for 8 years with over 25 years experience in the telecom industry. Derek is responsible for all sales of Zayo's enterprise and public sector businesses. That's over 7,500 customers worldwide. That's a lot. He's really a guru on all things Zayo, and he knows our customers. If anybody does, it's Derek. Next, I'd like to introduce Bill Long. He's our Chief Product Officer here at Zayo, and he oversees our entire product division. He's responsible for our product strategy, our financials, and our product roadmap. He has nearly 2 decades of experience in telecom, so a lot of experience between these two gentlemen. And if anyone can hold their finger up to the digital wind to predict its direction, it's definitely Bill. All right, with no further ado, let's dive in. Let's go ahead and start with a quick icebreaker for you both. Derek, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. Why are you still excited about digital infrastructure after all these years?
Yeah, I think that's easy. The constant change in our environment just drives so many different conversations with different customers. If you think about the evolution of technology and capabilities, I can remember my first job in IT. I was selling T1s and DSL connectivity to folks that were just learning about the internet themselves. When you think about how far we've come in 25 years, and I know that dates me, but it's just been an exciting run and an exciting adventure. But every year there's a new chapter in that book. And the things that we're focused on right now with customers in terms of digital transformation and change are just going to be the next wave of evolution in terms of the way that we utilize our product and service capabilities to help customers, kind of through uncharted territory in terms of how we can help them with critical business needs and helping to solve critical business problems.
Awesome. Bill, same question to
Sure.
you. What are you jazzed about?
I'm a little more like in the here and now than it sounds like Derek is. So I think right now, like I've never in my 20 some plus years in this career have seen a demand wave like we're seeing right now. The confluence of basically every enterprise is moving to be digitally enabled. If you're every business is a digital business now. So as they're making that transformation, the need for them to have and think about digital infrastructure first is just going through the roof. It's everything from it's like businesses you would never think of, like Caterpillar and industrial types of things. So just as the whole economy moves to be digitally enabled, the needs for the digital infrastructure is the grease that makes all that work. So just huge demand there. You couple that with what we're seeing with AI, it's pretty phenomenal. So like in AI as an example, a lot of times whether it's 5G or IoT or what, we get excited about technology. And a lot of times you sort of poke at those technology trends and you're like, well, where are the dollars? Who's going to pay for these use cases? And with AI, when your value prop or the value pool to be disrupted is like the pool of human cognition, it's a pretty phenomenal like value pool to be disrupted or to have available. So if you think about the confluence of everything's moving digital, there's this gargantuan value pool that has just huge dollars in it. But in order to make that all work, you need to have this digital infrastructure in place. It's a tailwind of demand that I've never seen in my career here, and that manifests itself, and that's why these huge investments. We're investing where our customers are demanding. So that's why you're seeing the big investments in 400G additional capacity and the huge fiber builds that we continue to do. So I just, if I was giving advice to a college kid now coming out, I think digital infrastructure is a great sort of career prospect for the next 10 years. And I just happy to have landed in it at this point in my career as well.
Awesome. So it sounds like we both agree, lots of change that's driving the need for Zayo. So that's wonderful. Derek, I'm going to start with you on kind of our first question. Zayo serves a breadth of customers across a variety of industries. You speak with our customers day in and day out. What's the number one challenge you see them facing right now?
Yeah, I think to piggyback off what Bill was talking about, it's making sure that they can keep up with digital transformation. There's so many things that are happening right now in the world, and I think Bill just nailed it in terms of what we're seeing from customers. But you've got legacy systems that are being transformed and driven in a way that we've never seen before. You've got the convergence of things like MPLS and IPVPN, moving rapidly to what we call edge capabilities, in and around SD-WAN. The IoT of things, as our customers in the retail and manufacturing space are trying to track every single piece of inventory that they have, so that they can stock their distribution centers, put products on the shelves, and really track the trends of what's being purchased day in, day out from their consumers. Continues to tax the network, but making sure that the network is purpose built for the broader ecosystem. How do customers keep up with that consistently and methodically, and then how does Zayo assist them in triaging the complexities of what's not working today that needs to be evaluated and augmented, in addition to the things that we and other companies can do to make sure that the nuts and bolts of that network is running harmoniously. You've got the application stack, you've got connectivity to the cloud, you've got things that need to be tracked. As Bill talked about, AI is putting a lot of complexity into people's thoughts and minds about how their network and their infrastructure is going to operate for years to come. And those are all interesting, complex business challenges that we're working on, helping our customers to solve day in, day out.
Love this. So as you said, Zayo is really here to assist our customers. And we've seen so much in the increase of just demand and what's needed from us. So Bill, I'd like to turn it to you. We've talked about the demands placed on our network from newer technologies around AI, 5G, IoT of things, all of the stuff we just talked about. How is Zayo really preparing for this next generation of technology?
Sure. So I think of sort of the networking in kind of segments. There's kind of the edge that's getting from the last mile user to some kind of aggregation point. Some of the interesting things going on there, we're seeing a lot of companies investing in fiber to the home. Zayo is a great middle mile partner for that. So using our fiber, similar to, if you think of fiber to the home, is similar to like connecting to a tower, where instead of aggregate, putting a tower up and having cell phones that everybody's attached to and coming back to the tower, and then the Zayo network aggregates all that in the metro, we can do something similar for the fiber to the home sort of ISPs that are building that. So Zayo's not going to get into the fiber to the home business ourselves, but we will be the one who can provide that middle mile connectivity from the neighborhood back into the core of the internet. So that's one area sort of at the edge that I think is interesting. We've talked a lot about how the demands of IoT and AI will drive things at the edge. One part maybe a little inflammatory. One area I don't think is going to be successful is at the edge is edge compute. I think getting the right compute in the right place at the right time for the right user deep into the network it's very cost prohibitive. If you look at the proliferation of different types of silicon, it's just too hard and too costly to get the right compute that deep into the network at the right time. And so we see a lot of people who are actually using our network to come back from the edge to connect at a more aggregated edge, so a macro edge, one or two locations within a metro, to be able to connect to that. So that's kind of what's going on at the edge. In the core of the network, all the capacity you can get, we need to throw at it. I think we're, I mentioned this tailwind of need that we're seeing. I actually think we're headed towards a fiber crunch. I look at, we're getting requests for fiber for the different use cases that we've already talked about, where a bulk fiber request used to be, 10, 12, most 24 fibers. In the metro, we're seeing requests, and we're actually signing deals for hundreds of fibers, connecting different data centers. And that's within the metro. And, it's not quite as big on the long haul side, but we're seeing huge demand on long haul as well. So if you think about how long it takes to build a new fiber route, we're seeing demand for the fiber that we have increase at a rate that it's going to be very difficult for us to actually supply. So I think we're in for a pretty interesting market where you have this big demand wave, and the time it takes to fulfill that supply is somewhat constrained. So I think that's a big sort of trend. And then lastly, and Derek hit on a lot of these points with, as enterprises are evolving their network architecture, that distributed hybrid multi-cloud architecture is actually pretty complex. And in order to manage that complexity, you need a high level of automation. It's just, for all the endpoints that you need to make sure your BGP tables are updated on, and that you're getting all of your route groups, set up the right way, the level of automation it requires to manage just the baseline network complexity, automation is table stakes. So I think that we're going to see that. That's the other big trend, is not just what the network is doing, but it's how it's doing it is really starting to evolve as well.
Awesome. So it sounds like I heard three big things from you. What we're doing and kind of what you're seeing, middle mile connectivity at the edge, increasing capacity to meet these much, much larger requests that we're seeing and will continue to see, and then automation. So making the complexity of network management a little bit easier. That's awesome. So Bill, knowing those three things, can you walk through some of the highlights of this year's investments?
Sure. And funny you should ask. I have them all written down right here. But I did have to write them down because it's a lot of them, and I'm not going to list all of them, but 21 400 gig routes on waves. On the fiber front, we added 1.5 million fiber miles of capacity, brings our total to 17 million. Added, completed a St. Louis to Indy route, kicked off a bunch of new routes. I'm personally super excited about what we call the southern route that's going from Dallas to El Paso. One of the trends we didn't hit on at the very beginning was this huge reindustrialization of North America. We're seeing gargantuan demand coming out of Mexico, and having that route, huge fiber connectivity, being able to pick up at El Paso and bring it in and have a single integrated digital supply chain with the rest of North America is big. So continue to add fiber routes, 31 new IP pops. Every quarter, we're adding 1 to 2 terabits of capacity on that. Some news on the global front. We're connecting a long haul route down into Sao Paulo with 4 pops there, an ultra low latency route into Tokyo, 400 gig build between Paris and Marseille. Our European backbone is now 100% 400 gig enabled, which is great. Some more, we got a 93 million funding from NTIA for middle mile. So that's a route from Umatilla to Reno, Dallas to El Paso, and Dallas to Atlanta. So adding both building routes as well as adding more breakouts to serve some of the tier 2, tier 3 metros that are there. We implemented waves on demand. So you can now, between particular high demand data centers, you can go into the Zayo portal and say, I want a 100 gig or 400 gig wave between these locations, and it turns up in 24 hours. So that's sort of on this journey of automation that we talked about. And looking into 24, one, you're going to see a lot more investment similar to that type of investment that I just mentioned, but also you're going to see a lot more automation, making it easier and easier to use the Zayo products over time. So I think that's the end of my list, but it took me a couple pages to write it down.
Yeah, that's quite a bit. Derek, with all of those announcements, what have you seen this mean to our customers?
Well, I think the chirpy one would be that we've got more toys in the toy box or more tools in the tool shed. So there's a lot more for us to provide in terms of, what critical infrastructure, means to us and the places that we can take it. And to Bill's point, our customers drive a ton of demand and have a lot of input in terms of where we make investments, whether it's the web scale community in terms of builds to new data centers, whether it's the financial community in terms of requiring more and more resiliency. But whether it's going to a data center, a building, a doorstep, or a municipality, we continue to make investments in the organic growth of our network so our customers can take advantage of that to fuel some of the critical needs that they have. One of the things that we think about in terms of individual customer segments and maybe some use cases without using names is when you think about what we call FTTX, which is fiber to the whatever. We're helping companies that focus on bringing fiber to the doorstep by utilizing our networks and building concentric rings around some of these residential areas that make their service capability effective. What sits on that fiber? Well, your cable TV service, for example, or your home internet service. So we help customers in that space connect to our network and use it to help fuel the appetites that home users have to connect. When we think about the financial services segment in particular, we're connecting all forms of the ecosystem to our fiber and wave routes and IP backbone to connect their consumers and their users to liquidity around the world. But they've got high demand for kind of these concepts of never go down networks where we're building redundant tertiary or even quadversity into the backbone so that they have 2, 3, and 4 options to connect critical data centers and critical hubs back to their network and back to their consumers. The idea of putting your ATM card into the machine and not being able to get money out because there's some sort of failure on the network is just a non-starter for that community. When you think about healthcare, utilization continues to go up within the 4 walls of a hospital or even healthcare provider, based on the fact that every device in that hospital is tracked and managed, via the network. So we see lots and lots of room for, continued growth and utilization there. And then, we touched on, what's happening in Mexico, just amazing when you think about the amount of growth that's happening there and the number of our customers that need critical infrastructure solutions to connect their users south of the border to endpoints that we've already established in the US and Canada. I think it gives us a tremendous opportunity to be a thought leader in that space. We're working with some of the best and brightest companies there to develop capabilities that haven't been developed in some areas in over 20 years. But we'll be assisting them in bringing the newest fiber and some of the newest capabilities, to the forefront in that region. So you put all that stuff together, we just continue to make really strong investments in ourselves and in our network. But again, stressing the importance of the fact that our customers, help us to determine where they need to be. And it gives us a lot of flexibility into where we put dollars to work.
Awesome. Love that comparison to more tools in the tool shed. It sounds like our network is exactly that. And speaking of tools, I think automation is kind of changing in general how the network experience and benefits, across the board. Bill, I'd love for you to speak on what benefits can we expect, or what can our customers expect, and what's on our roadmap for network automation solutions in the future for Zayo.
Sure. I mean, I think in general, like automation is great. We love automation, but I think focusing on what are the problems we're trying to have automation solve is always the best place to start. And there's a couple of them. One is, I mentioned it earlier, networks are getting more complex. If you don't have automation in order to help you manage the complexity of your network, you're going to fall behind. You just simply can't, do command line interface logins and configure your routing anymore. It's just too complex. So one, the inherent nature of the complexity is one of the problems to solve. Second is user preference. I call it the trend from the suits to hoodies. The people who used to be the buyers of network services are no longer in suits. They're the hoodies who are used to software enabled everything, and they don't want to pick up the phone to talk to their salesperson to order more IP addresses. They want to be able to log onto a portal, or more, even more preferred, they love to be able to have an API that they can just go and request it. So it's user preference is the second one. And the third big one is just the fundamental business model. I think in the old world, the old telco model was you'd have armies of people doing manual things. That business model doesn't work. I mean, if you haven't noticed, a lot of the old, the more classic telecom companies who still rely on that model are not doing great. So if you don't have business processes that you can deeply automate, then the business model is going to be fundamentally flawed. So I think when you think about those as kind of the reasons to go solve it, is manage the complexity, solve for the user preference, and really get for Zayo, like for completely selfish reasons, solving for automation such that we can spend our money on building network where we want to go build instead of paying for armies of people to go and do manual things. So what that means, if those problem sets to be solved, it starts all the way from how we do our network planning, how it's quoted and ordered, how we manage and monitor and provide that visibility of what's going on to the network out to our customers, and how we do support. So in my mind, anything that can be automated should be automated, just because it's how our customers want to be doing business. It creates that just-in-time kind of communication mechanism where it's much more effective if something's going on in the network, if not that this would ever happen, but if there's ever a fiber cut, being able to go in and see, they're proactively, hey, there's a fiber cut in this area, instead of having to pick up the phone and say, hey, I just noticed something's going on with the fiber. So it just permeates all ways that you interact. Not just sort of quoting and ordering and the NAT, network as a service aspect of the business. It's from soup to nuts how you should be expect on for transforming the whole experience.
So it sounds like we're thinking about how we do business and putting automation in the process so the end result for the customer is easier, as well as making sure their experience is easier across the way by having the automation from a digital perspective.
Yeah, I would say it's the opposite order of that. Like it's the solving it for the customers, what they care about the most, and it just happens to have residual benefits for us as sort of the residual effect.
Love that. Another one for you. And Derek, I think you've already touched on this of we want to make sure Zayo is building where our customers are. Bill, on that, can you talk about Zayo's architecture strategy? Where do we decide to build, and how much do we decide to build where?
Yeah, so I think Derek hit it head on. Yeah, our biggest way to figure out where we should be building our network is to listen to our customers. So just listen to them, have all the conversations, all the QBRs, and I'm on the road all the time listening to customers where they have their demand. And it's interesting. We've talked a lot about different trends. One of the trends that I wasn't expecting that we're seeing now is on the AI front. There's so much data center proliferation for people looking for cheap power. So one of the big constraints in the market is these data centers that are running these AI models are so compute intensive. The scarce commodity is having the power that's on a power grid to power the data centers. Luckily, our long haul network goes by a lot of these sort of locations that wouldn't be where you expect. So they're in these Timbuktu locations that just happen to be next door to a nuclear power plant or a hydroelectric facility. So it's listening to where the customers are taking us is by far number one. But of course, when they're that's where they want us to go. But how we get there also matters. So always making sure we're doing it in a redundant way that gives our customers good optionality is part of it as well.
Wonderful. And Derek, I'm going to pivot to you a little bit. One of the things that I think we've seen and we've talked about is who's buying has changed a bit. Meaning it used to be we used to work with one buyer, and now it's kind of a committee. Can you talk a little bit about how you've seen that shift?
Yeah, so I mean, as networks have become more complex, and I think we see this a lot on the edge services side and in the SD-WAN space, CIOs and CTOs really are trying to attempt to make decisions that make the network purpose built for the applications and the user ecosystem that it's supporting. It used to be a network manager or maybe a CTO at a senior level. But in a lot of the meetings that we're having now, you've got representation from the network side, the security side, the folks that manage the applications, even going down into the storage levels of the business. Everybody is at the table having a conversation around what network decision is going to impact their portion of the business to ensure that the network isn't a choke point for the things that are most important. And I think that's important in terms of CIOs and CTOs building the right, I'd call it ecosystem of innovation, so that when they're dealing with the internal users and their partners and suppliers, that there's really good open communication around, what's available in the marketplace. One of the things that I run into constantly, and I enjoy it. It's like the most, favorite part of my day is when we're talking to a customer that's been utilizing our capabilities for many, many years. But we have a conversation a little bit more broad around initiatives, some of the things that are challenging, and ultimately, what the group of people we're talking to are trying to accomplish as it relates to critical infrastructure. And as we continue to provide an education, the one thing I hear more times than anything is just, "Wow, Derek, I had no idea you guys did all this stuff." And then that lets us to, go even deeper and provide an even more broader education around the capabilities that most customers are sitting on top of today. They just don't know it. So our commitment is to do a better job with our customers in terms of that storytelling and that storyboarding. But there's just a lot of capability under the hood. When you're sitting on Zayo's network, whether it's at your location or in a data center. And the fun part of the day is, giving that education to our customers, and then, 3, 6, 9 months down the road, watching that conversation take shape in terms of what it evolved into, and then ultimately how we helped customers solve their critical problems.
So let's shift a little bit. Knowing you both are likely talking to CIOs and CTO network executives on the regular, what advice would you give to them? This is a question for both of you. Bill, I'm going to actually start with you.
Expect the unexpected. I think if we learned anything coming out of the COVID crisis now, there's, you never know what crisis you're going to get hit with. And I think we've talked a lot about AI here. You never know what opportunity is going to be on the other side. So I think planning for the unexpected is a big one, and that can manifest itself in lots of different ways. One of my, being in this market, one of the truisms is that throwing bandwidth at a problem solves a lot of problems. Whether it's a DDoS attack that you didn't plan for, whether it's more work from home people than you expected, whether it's there's a lot of just throwing bandwidth at problems solves a lot of problems. So plan for the unexpected is one of the big ones. It's kind of like life advice, but I think that would be just be ready now, because you don't know what's coming around the corner.
Love that. Derek, same question for you.
Yeah, I'd have to piggyback off of my last comment a bit, but what I see work really well is where again, there's that user community at the table at the beginning as we're having conversations around what transformation and change looks like. Don't be afraid to bring more of your thought leadership into those discussions earlier on. We're trying to do that more consistently in terms of giving our customers more access to the brain trust behind the sales and sales engineering organization. But it's great to watch the conversation unfold when there are folks like Bill Long in the conversation from Zayo talking about the product and service capabilities to give the customer more expansive education around how they can use the platform. One of the things that we didn't talk about in the investment side of the house is, what Zayo's been doing to put more capital to work in terms of our systems and processes, particularly around the experience that customers have in delivery and support. Our goal is to overhaul those components of the business and make them part of the pre-sales process, so that customers can understand what happens the day after a contract is signed. So we want to definitely put more of the human capital of Zayo to work in those conversations to make sure customers understand what their experience is going to be, as opposed to just showing up and asking about requirements and hopefully pricing out some things that make good economic sense. So I would say to double down on make sure that you've got a good cohesive ecosystem of people participating in those conversations in the beginning, whether they be more of the user community on the customer side, and folks like us and other partners. That tends to land the plane pretty quickly on the right solution that makes sense for the business.
Yeah, I'll echo, I think, what Derek was just saying. I think that, in order to earn the right to do some of these new expansions of the new technology, you got to get the fundamentals right. There's like all telcos, we don't get all the support, and we don't get the service delivery exactly right every time. And we're putting a ton of investment into overhauling our support and our support systems with how we handle issues when they come in, how we can do more proactive alarming, as well as on the service delivery front, getting much more automated with our service delivery and being able to bring those install intervals down as well. So I think a lot of, on the back of getting our network where it needs to be, a lot of that automation that I was talking about will manifest itself in dramatic improvements in our support experience, dramatic improvements in our service delivery, which are areas that we honestly haven't done as well as we'd like to in the recent past. So we're their internal teams are pretty hyper focused on getting that really humming.
Awesome. To that, I think that answered one of the questions in our Q&A panel. So thank you, Bill. Lovely. We're going to go ahead and move on to a rapid fire question. This might be my very favorite portion because typically we'll see back and forth both of your answers and we'll be able to have a conversation around them. So I'll start with the first one. What emerging technology are you most excited about? Derek, I'm going to start with you first.
I'd have to say AI.
Any reason why specifically, or?
Yeah, I just think it's a game changer, and it may be the answer to the next rapid fire question as well. But the excitement that AI has created in the marketplace, has created some interesting conversations that I don't think that we were predicting. But the number of folks that have come to us, and Bill touched on this in terms of the request or requirement for the number of fiber spans far exceeds what we've seen on a usual per transaction basis. It's just extraordinary. The need to get more fiber to places where data centers are going to be that they currently aren't today. The forethought that's going into that is massive. But I think that what is happening in AI is driving conversations down and across into various vertical segments that I don't think we were expecting, and I think that's really exciting.
Awesome. Bill?
Yeah, so I know we have like technology people on the phone. I have a tiny little iPhone mini and they don't sell them anymore. So the thing that I'd be excited about is anybody can convince Apple to continue to make the small iPhone instead of these big monsters. That would be my tech innovation of the future, because I like to take my technology with me, right? You want to be able to talk to your AI and do your chatbot and do whatever, wherever you want to take it. And these gargantuan computers we now have in our pockets, I don't love. So tell Apple I want my tiny phone. That's fine.
I'll be sure to send him this webinar, Bill. Love that. We did have a question come in. Let's address it. Can you repeat how many miles of optical fiber cable you have today, and what's your estimate for new deployment? So Bill, I'm going to go to you for that.
Yeah, I think the total, looking at my notes, 17 million fiber miles, and in 23 we've added year to date 1.5 million.
That's correct. Yeah. Love that. One more question. Does Zayo offer direct internet access, DIA, to SMEs in many cities or area? Will you grow this presence or concentrate more on long distance?
Yeah, it's a good question. So we absolutely offer internet service in tons of different locations. You'll find that Zayo really shines where there's enough demand that fiber really makes sense. So if you need a let's call it a 1 gig connection or less, you'll probably be decently well served with one of your local cable companies or another. But if you have a multi, in by 1 gig or more, that's where fiber is really going to be a great fit, and that's where Zayo really shines. And we're in, Derek may know off the top of his head, dozens and dozens of metros all throughout the U.S. You can go to our website and check out our maps and see what's proximate, or just give Derek a call, look him up. And he can figure it out for you. But yeah, no, we do DIA all over the U.S., Mexico, or starting to look at Mexico and then in Europe as well.
Yep. Also Canada, right? All across North America.
Yes, Canada. Geez. Yep, of course.
Can't forget about our Canadian friends. Lovely. All right, back to rapid fire questions. What emerging technology do you think will have the hardest time moving past the hype phase? Derek, I'm going to start with you on this.
I think it could also be AI, only because there's so much buzz going on in the space, and the conversations I've had at this point range from your crypto companies that are doing mining that are going to start injecting AI and supercomputing into some of the ways that they determine the outcomes of those businesses. We've got large financial institutions that are talking about, lots more fiber and data center to house, again, supercomputers to do stuff. But when we drill deep and we're like, well, what is that stuff? A lot of the times the answer is, well, we don't know yet, but we're just trying to prepare for it.
Yeah.
So I think it could make people's lives a little difficult in the short term, only because, very similar to cloud, when cloud started to become a buzzword, and, very similar to the way blockchain was a buzzword. People were just trying to figure out, what do we need to do to plan to get ahead of it, only to find out that, the road to really understanding how it was going to impact the business was rather long. I think the good thing that happens in that is that, on a long enough timeline, you whittle down the number of people who are really going to be good at this down to a handful of folks, and it gives people more clarity in terms of who the thought leaders and the providers are going to be that are ultimately going to, control the space. But I think that in the beginning, right now, from what I see, there's a little hysteria going on just in terms of what it means to the individual and the companies that they work for, and I don't think a lot of that's clear yet.
Yeah, like the use cases, not quite sure how to use it, but know we should, right?
Mhm.
Love that. So we've had quite a few questions come in. So let's start with Pete's question. What specific parts of Mexico is Zayo concentrating on? I'll leave that.
So I'll hit on that one. And Derek, I'd love your thoughts too. First of all, I mentioned that we have a route that we call the Southern Route. We already have fibers going all the way, from Dallas all the way over to San Diego. But being able to pick up the traffic as it comes into the U.S. is one of our big focus. We also announced an overbuild of the route from Dallas to El Paso, which is a key border point where we can pick that up. Because what we're seeing is demand for companies that want to manage their North American communications infrastructure as a single integrated supply chain. So we're seeing both picking up from where we're picking it up on the border, but a lot of that traffic is coming out of Querétaro, straight out of outside of Mexico City. So just big investment there, and also in Monterrey, as a lot of the sort of industrial use cases are coming. A lot of that stuff that used to be done in China is now being nearshored in a combination of tier 2, tier 3 markets in the U.S. and in Mexico. So it's really pretty broad footprint in Mexico that we're asking to be part of the solution. And again, a lot of that solution is providing IP services in some of those metros in Mexico, but also picking up with the bulk fiber that is along the southern route.
Yeah, just to double down on that. So last year, this year at ITW, one of our big splash moments and announcements was the partnership that we've got with Formaca, and it's one of many. But the interesting thing is that they're coming, from the western side of Mexico down to Guadalajara, in Querétaro, and fundamentally building the newest fiber that Mexico has seen across that landscape in the last 20 years. That helps us to leverage the southern route that Bill was talking about in terms of providing, very strong redundant capabilities purely from a fiber perspective to the customers who are looking to build or extend their networks through those regions. It also gives us the ability to start thinking about the way that we expand from a transport and packet perspective to deliver capabilities that our customers can pick up in Mexico or Canada and across the United States to link, critical nodes on their network and critical users in those communities, to truly be a Pan-American provider of services when you think about what exists north and south of the border. And that's just the start of it, right? So it's our ability to, look at North America as a whole and say that we're truly focused on bringing capabilities end to end to our customers where they operate in that space.
Awesome. Great. So another question from Frank. We're going to answer this one live. What does demand for fiber look like in Canada? And do you agree that our supply there is low? What is Zayo's position on Canada? Tough question.
Do you want to hit that one, Derek, or do you want me to take it?
Yeah, Canada is a very important part of our business. When we think about the work that we do, with the government, with the major carriers and suppliers, and then the enterprise businesses that are there, it continues to be an area of significant influence in terms of the impact to Zayo's revenue stream. Selfishly, Bill and Troy Lupe, who's our chief network officer, they're working hand in hand to prioritize the investments that we make continually year over year. And as we look at the importance of Canada to our consumer base and the network infrastructure resources that we have there, we'll continue to make that part of the process in terms of where we grow and scale. But very important part of our business. If you look at the acquisition that we did many years ago to bring Allstream into the fold, it made Zayo, today, even to date, one of the only, if not the only, true Pan-American provider of fiber capabilities, across the border. And that's something we're very proud of. And if there are suggestions, like I said, our customers help to drive a majority of what we do from an investment standpoint. Bill and I would be a great audience in terms of, having that conversation and determining where we put capital to work.
Good job. So next is a question from Owen. Owen said, what would you say the most vital attribute that differentiates Zayo from its competitions or competitors? I apparently can't read.
I think as a network company, obviously where network is like one of your biggest differentiators. So it's both where your network is, the level of redundancy that it offers to those locations, as well as the uniqueness of the routes. So number one by far is where the network is. Our goal is to make the network infrastructure as easy as possible. And the first part of making it easy is the network where you need it, when you need it. So that's number one. Number two is the how you can access it, make it easy to quote, order, and turn up and support. So we've got, that's where a lot of my team is really focused on, is removing the friction out of that process, because there's way more friction than we want in it right now. And the only way that we're going to get in front of this sort of demand wave that I keep talking about is if we figure out a different and better way for our customers to quote, order, support, and be able to observe our network in a real-time basis. So we're making great headway. Waves on Demand was a great step in that direction. We got a lot more work to do to really unlock that really differentiated where the network is value prop of it.
Derek,
yeah, and I was going to add one thing to that. Sorry, Holly. One of the things that resonates, I think, with customers more than anything is just the level of transparency that we provide in terms of where our network is and where it goes. Interesting little exercise if you ever wanted to try it with both us and any one of the competitors that we have. Ask for KMZ routes and see how long it takes to get those, based on how much of your network is with us or with others. For us, it's provided in a matter of keystrokes. We update that information, in 90-day increments, and we're, always more than happy to share it. But, we're constantly known for the company who's probably the most transparent and the most free about sharing information around, where our network is and where it goes. And I think that will continue to be a cornerstone of the way that we operate the business moving forward.
Awesome. So I'm going to pivot to one. I think we have time for 2 or 3 more questions. The rest of questions we will send out in a follow-up email to all attendees with the answers associated. Question: for Waves on Demand, where customers can use Zayo's portal to order and turn up in 24 hours, Bill, I'm going to address this to you. Would this be available for custom specific routes, or is it just for standard non-custom, non-latency guaranteed routes?
Yeah, so right now we have Waves on Demand is available on high demand routes. I believe there are 9 different spans that we have, and we're adding capacity to that all the time. We are working with our optical vendor or optical partner on how we can make that active in real time. Meaning, ultimately our vision is the customers will be able to go into a portal, design the wave route that they want, and to be able to order it. We can get that stood up, and all you got to do is plug the cross connects in, like it works on Waves on Demand today with there's pre-provision capacity. So the steps are, currently it's only for 9 spans. Where the idea is initially we'll make it available wherever we have pre-provision capacity, so you'll be able to go and do that. And then of course, if you wanted to go into a custom customer location, that requires deploying equipment that's always going to have a longer lead time. So right now it's just for those 9 spans. That's expanding very quickly. But the vision is to have an online experience where you can go and deploy that much more broadly wherever we have capacity available with custom designed routes.
Got it. So it sounds like that's on the roadmap, but we're starting with kind of our most popular routes.
That's right.
Awesome. Next question: do you offer long-term IRUs, 5 years, 10 years, wavelengths, and dark fiber?
Yes.
Love it. All right. Oh, so many questions coming in. I love this participation. So talking about our support tickets, what are acceptable or what is our goal around SLAs when a support ticket is entered for a hard down circuit?
Well, I think the goal is that there isn't a support ticket needed. Like that, I think there's the best support experience is not to need to use it. But obviously that's, you know, we all live in a human world, and that's not the it's not the right answer. You know, I don't know off the top of my head about what our SLAs say on our you know, sort of the expected response time for the different product variants that we have. So we'll make sure we send that in the follow-up. I don't know, Derek, if you happen to know off the top of your head.
Yeah, no, it's evolving as Troy and team are working on redefining and reclassifying what good looks like. As I said, you know, we put two major investments into the business over the last 2 years. It was about $250 million with a B, in terms of network hardening and the network expansion that we announced 2 years ago, and then this year has been heavily predicated on more investments in the network operations center. That's investments in people. It's investments in capability, and it's investments in systems. But to your point, the goal of the objective is for those investments to put Zayo in a position where we're leading edge when it comes to the post-sales experience. And to your point, if we need to republish that data, we certainly can for the people that participated in the webinar today.
Awesome. So last question we're going to take now, and then we're going to go up to kind of our wrap up here. A question more on a technical end of what type of optical fiber do we use for our 400G high-speed communications? Bill?
I'll put that in the I don't know box.
That's fair.
Yep, we'll have to follow offline.
That is fair. Awesome. All right. So last question for you two as we wrap up. In 3 words, I love these questions because it's so tough to say it in 3 words. Summarize Zayo's network investments. Derek, I'll start with you.
Large, strategic, and continual.
Okay. Bill?
Pipes where needed.
Pipes where needed. That's like a tagline. I like that. Awesome. All right. Well, thank everybody today for joining us. You know, really, it was wonderful, Derek and Bill, hearing from both of you. I learned a lot about, you know, what's going on at Zayo around our network investments. We're really doing a lot, and I'm just so excited to see what's next. Also really pumped about the automation and just the perspective and insights into that, really making our customers' lives easier. It's neat to be part of a company that listens to our customer and is excited to build what they really need. Anyway, with that, thank you guys all for, you know, being here today. We continue and want to continue to hear from you. Please feel free to reach out to Derek, Bill, myself, anybody on this call today. We'd love to keep the conversation going about, you know, where you need our pipes to be, and let's continue to talk about it. Thank you again for your partnership and trust in Zayo and joining us today. Thanks all.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you. Thanks, Holly.